What should we do? How can we avoid the scandal of the gospel today? For the true Christian to avoid the scandal of the gospel, well, it would be easier for them to go around the Red Sea or to climb the walls of Jericho. We cannot avoid the scandal. We must embrace it, and we must not compromise. We must not compromise. Not one doctrine dealing with the blood of Christ must be compromised. I'll use an illustration from Churchill that I have somewhat sanctified. In his wranglings with other politicians regarding whether or not to engage Nazi Germany in war, he said to someone, and again, this has changed a bit, he said to someone, "Would you betray our nation for £1 million?" And the person said, "Well, I would have to think about that." Then he said, "Would you betray our nation for 2 pence?" And the person said, "No. What kind of person do you think I am?" He said, "We've already determined what kind of person you are. We're just haggling over the price." We have no choice today. Not anymore. Times have changed. We have no choice but to bear the scandal, bear the opposition, and go through it. You say, yes, we must go through it with our heads down. No, we must go through it with our heads up, drawing upon the strength of heaven. And though no one else smiles, when we look horizontally, when we look in front of us or behind us or beside us, we see no smile. We look to heaven because that's the only smile we desire. The smile of Christ. We have no choice but to bear it and go through it, preaching the gospel and believing that the gospel is the power of God for salvation to all who believe, the Jew first and also the Greek, the ancient man and the modern one, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's the title of this sermon. It's directed towards Christ's ministers. We are the King's men. We are the King's men. We've now moved into a time in the West, my brethren, when it is very possible that we are going to experience the solemn and terrible privilege of first century persecution. But if we hold our course, if we refuse to compromise, we may also experience the first century power of the cross and the power of the Holy Spirit. You say, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to bear it. I know you will be able to bear it if you belong to Him. I was a farm boy cast into the middle of a war for 10 years in Peru. Saw atrocities, experienced fears and dangers that I never could have imagined. And yet I discovered something. When the violent take you by force, there is something that happens in the inner man. Christ does not depart. He becomes real, and He makes you strong. He is faithful. No matter what we have to endure in the coming decades, we should not fear if we stay with Him, if we honor Him, if we do not break. So, here's my admonition before we take the text. Let's go forward. Let's go forward. And not primarily to defend the gospel, but to do what some of us have done now for decades: proclaim the gospel. And then stand to one side and admire as the gospel of Jesus Christ defends itself and proves its power. But the gospel we preach must not be adorned with eloquence. It must not be adorned with your intellect. The raw gospel, the real gospel, the gospel of the cross, the gospel of blood, the gospel of vicarious suffering. If we will proclaim it, we will see the glory of God. We will see the glory of God. But remember this: to the degree that you trust in the arm of the flesh, you will see less of this power of which I speak. And the more you abandon all these carnal trappings of modern evangelicalism, the more you will behold the power of God.